Gandang hapon po. Day 5. Grabe, yung bilis ng araw. Pang-5 araw na. Day 5 and we have now our topic for today, terms, classic theories of meaning, and conceptual frameworks. Alright, share ako ng screen ha. Gandang hapon po. Okay. Monitor ko yun eh. Share tayo ng screen. First things first, attendance. Attendance tayo. Alright. Saan yung attendance natin? Ito. Post ko. Yan. Responsibilidad para sa bayan. Ang bayan natin ngayon, tagilid. Bakit? 209, by end of this afternoon, 300,000 na ang ating COVID cases. Nagsimula lang sa isa, January 30. We expect, given some mathematical models, mga kalahating milyon na yan by end of this year or beginning of next year. Grabe, no? Alright, so please, ito, attendance ha. Okay. So, balik tayo. Ano ba yung topic natin para ngayon? Okay, ito yan. Pinadala ko kanina. Ay, oo nga pala. Oo nga pala. Wala ako sa opisina ngayon. Nasa bahay ako. Hindi ako nakapunta ng opisina kasi yung daming labada at saka plantsahin. Magpapaligo pa ako ng 3 aso. Oh my God! Alright, so I'm not in my office now. Pero I'm making the best of the situation. So, share tayo ng screen. Ito yung topic natin, ha? Terms. Ano yung terms? Basic units of a language. What is a language? A language is a system of units realizable in some sensory medium, only certain combinations of which have meaning by convention, and hence useful for communication. And in addition, useful for what? Enhancing or facilitating your capacity to think. Ano pa? Enhancing or facilitating your capacity to perceive. Ano pa? Enhancing or facilitating your capacity to transfer and accumulate knowledge. Yan. Pinag-aralan natin last time, ha? Okay. Ano ang takeaway ninyo? Ano ang takeaway ninyo after this session? Well, one, malalaman nyo yung classic theories of meaning. Ano yan? Referential theory at saka ideational theory of meaning. Ano pa? 2, malalaman nyo kung ano ba ibig sabihin ng conceptual framework. Yan. Alright. There's another way of looking at philosophy. Ano ba yan? Hindi ko ma-highlight. Ayan. There's another way of looking at philosophy as a kind of a conceptual framework. Alright. So, ito yung ating topic for today. Meanwhile, entertainment. Ano yung entertainment natin? Alright. Meanwhile, Mentimeter tayo. Okay? Mentimeter tayo. Asan ba yung Mentimeter natin? Lagi ha. Share ulit. Mentimeter. Nasaan na yan? Yan. Sige nga. Sagutan nyo na. Ipopost ko. Teka muna. Kasi pag minsan, nauunahan nyo ko eh. Dapat mauna ako. Sandali ha. Just a moment. Saan ba yung sa atin? Ito. Yan. Okay. Okay, post ko na. Yan. Yan ang ating link. Alright. And this is my presentation. Okay. Sige nga. First point, I am aware of what cyberspace is. Kayo yung generation ng information, communication, technology. Yes. Siyempre naman, yes. Although ako, matanda na ako nung nalaman ko yung cyberspace. Ang concept ng cyberspace, hindi nyo alam, na-imbento yan noong 1940s ni Robert Wiener. 1940s ha? And matanda na ako sa UP nung nalaman ko kung ano yung lintris na yan. So, may sumagot ng no, hindi naman nakakahiya na sabihin hindi. Alright? 1940s concept by Robert Wiener. W-I-E-N-E-R. Robert Wiener. Okay. 14 say yes and 1 says no. Yung iba, hindi pa naglalagin. Ewan ko kung bakit. Alright? Cyberspace is not real. Ano ba yung totoo? Alright? Yung fake, kagaya ng ng white sand sa Ross Boulevard. Yan, fake yan. White sand sa Manila Bay, fake yan. Alright? Cyberspace is not real. Remember, negation yan ha? Not real. So pag sinabi nyong no, ibig sabihin you're saying it is real ha? Not real. Alright? So everybody saying cyberspace is real. Talaga. Pero isa nagsabi, yes, cyberspace is not real. Talaga naman meron pa rin tayong outlier. Sige na nga. Alright. 12. Uy, dalawa na sila. Cyberspace is not real. Okay. Bakit? Real ba yung yung mga tools ninyo sa ano nga ba yung game natin? Vegetables versus the zombies. Pag binabato sila ng cabbages and carrots, real ba yun? Alright, next question. Move on tayo Nawala na yung iba. Next question. My thoughts are in cyberspace. Remember, you think, di ba? You reflect. Sabi nga natin, as philosophers, you reflect. May reflection kayo of what is around you. Your reflection are where? In cyberspace? Sabi niya, yes. No. Equal. Suntukan na kayo. Dumami yung yes. My thoughts are in yes. Are in cyberspace. Maghahabulan Sige nga. 5-6. 6 all. 6-7. Talaga. 7 all. Oh my God. Ayan. Tapos, 7-8. Doon siya nagsasabi ng may tanong ako. Kung your thoughts are not in cyberspace, nasaan sila? Tanong nga natin Tanong natin doon sa ating alright? Magtatanong ako dito sa ating chat. Saan ang thoughts ninyo? Alright, saan ang thoughts ninyo kung wala sa cyberspace? Yan. Sige nga. Tingnan natin mga sagot. Magandang hapon po. Alright. Yan, kompleto na tayo ng mga estudyante. Alright, ito nga. My thoughts are in cyberspace. Teka, share ulit tayo. Baka mawala na naman. Alright. Yan ang sagot ninyo. My thoughts are in cyberspace. My thoughts are physical, material in nature. Sagot nga. Physical, material in nature. Sige nga. Yung mga kinakapos ng data or mahina ang signal, manood na lang kayo At sayang yung data ninyo kung sakali. Alright, but more or less, maganda naman yung ating sampling sa very significant representative of the class. 10. ang nagsabi, my thoughts are physical. Uy, ang galing ninyo ha, sigurado kayo. Eh siyempre, pinag-usapan natin, uy, merong isa, my thoughts are not physical. Eh kung hindi siya physical, ano siya? Magic. Alright? A mystery to be embraced with faith. Oh, yan. Yan ang laging sagot sa akin ng mga teacher ko nung elementary ako at high school eh. Pag hindi kaya sagutin, it's a mystery to be embraced with faith. Buti na lang, di ako na-kick out nung ako elementary at high school. Dami kong tanong eh. Alright. So, hanggang dyan muna tayo ha. Marami pa tayong pwede itanong. Kaya lang, baka maubos yung oras eh. So, ano yung topic natin? Balik ulit tayo rito ha. Terms. Ayan. Ano yung topic natin? Terms. Ay, teka. Tingnan nga natin yung sagot ninyo doon sa chat. Ano yung sagot ninyo doon sa chat? Wala pa. So, sige, mamaya. Okay, terms. All right, terms are the basic units of a language. What's a language? Language is a system of units realizable in some sensory medium, only certain combinations of which have meaning by convention, and hence useful for communication and useful for your secondary functions that we have already pointed out. Now, let's move on. Yung terms natin ay actually, name-measure yan. As in, nasusukat. Alright? Nasusukat. Measured in terms of the dimension of meaning. Yan. May dimension yung tables natin, length, width, and height. Yung terms, may dimension yan. Ano yung dimension yan? Meaning. Yan. Alright? So, isa lang ang dimension ng terms, meaning. Well, put it this way, ha? Meron tayong isda. Ano naman kinalaman ng isda sa ating usapan? Alright, pumunta ka sa lake, may nakita kang isda, hinuli mo. Now, pagka adult yung isda, pwede mo nang lutuin. Alright? Pwede mong kainin. Pagka juvenile, dahil ikaw ay taga-UP, alright, yan ay isosoli mo. Kasi lalaki pa yan at saka baka manganak pa yan. So, pag adult, you eat. Pag juvenile, you return to the lake. Alright? Unless, of course, you're from Ateneo, Lasal, or from some university-built school, well, siguro kainin mo na lang yan agad. Now, tanong, how do you know your fish is adult or juvenile? Answer, di interviewin mo, di ba? Saan ka pinanganak? Anong pangalan mo? So, yung tatay mo. Alright, I'm just kidding. Of course, you have to measure your fish. Alright, you have to measure your fish. Your fish is juvenile or adult, depending on if the operculum is equal to or greater than this, then it is an adult. If it is less than, you say it's a juvenile. There you go. Yung isda, sinusukat natin. Alright? Similarly, yung terms, nasusukat din natin. Yan. Terms ay nasusukat. Alright? In a way, nasusukat by way of meaning. Alright? Terms. Yan. Remember, ang terms ay tools. Tools na ginagamit natin that we invent. Dati nag-invent tayo nung sabi natin, bohemian. Tapos nainis na tayo, pinalitan natin, sabi natin, beatnik. Tapos nainis tayo, sabi natin, hippie. And then punk. And then, ano pa ba? Hip-hop. And then Jeff Rocks. And then jumping jologs. And life goes on. Alright, these are tools that we agree upon to use. Remember? What are tools for? We use them. In particular, we use them for our community. Remember, we are a community of users. Alright? We are a community of users. Maraming tao. And as a community of users, alright, so meron tayong community, we agree as to what these terms are. Alright? Now, problem. Bakit? When you use a tool, lagi ka bang successful? Halimbawa, meron kang tool na pangputol ng puno, does it mean you have a tool, therefore naputol mo yung puno? Hindi naman eh. Kung meron kang tool, tapos ginamit mo pamputol ng puno, kagaya ng chainsaw, nawalan ka ng gasolina, o hindi mo naputol yung puno. Alright? Now, similarly, kung meron kang term, you use it, pwedeng hindi successful. Pwedeng happy ang situation. Bakit? Kasi successful ka. Alright? Or unhappy. Bakit unhappy? Because hindi ka naintindihan nung kinausap mo. Sabi mo, I love you, tapos hindi ka naman pinansin. Alright? Pwedeng mangyari, busted ka tuloy. Alright? So, what we're saying is, it can happen that your term is either meaningful or not. Bakit? Kasi kung siya ay meaningful, maiintindihan ka. Hopefully. Or, hindi ka naintindihan. So, you can say, well, sinukat ko yung term, siya ay meaningless. Halimbawa, ano yung term? Sprackenheits. Inimbento ko lang yun. Kaya wala talagang meaning yun. Alright? Your term can either be meaningful or meaningless. So, that's one way of putting it. Parang sinabi nung yung isda, the fish is either juvenile or adult. O may sukatan ka niya, di ba? Now, presuming it is meaningless, tapos ng boxing. But if it is meaningful, then what? Then you ask, is the meaning clear or unclear? O, susukatin mo na naman yan. Clear or unclear? Alright? Pagka clear, paano mo nalaman? Pagka unclear, paano mo nalaman? Alright? Now, when you say your term is unclear, for our purposes, sasabihin natin, there are two possibilities. One, unclear kasi ambiguous. Ambiguous. Bakit? Ambi, ibig sabihin parang ambidextrous, ambivalent, alright? Dalawa or more. Ambiguous, ibig sabihin you have two or more meanings for the same term. Paano nangyari yun? Di ipakita ko sa inyo, di ba? Yan, halimbawa, sabi ni Professor De Villa na kung ano-anong pinaggagawa sa buhay niya ay the end of things is perfection. Okay? The end of things is perfection. Bakit? Kasi when I do things, ay gusto ko malaman na am I moving in the direction of a better and better activity, a better and better thing. Alright? Mas gumagaling ba ako sa taekwondo? Mas gumagaling ba ako mag-swimming? Mas gumagaling ba ako mag-scuba diving? And so on and so forth. So, for me, the end of things is perfection. Kaso, papaano kung biglang sinabi ng estudyante ko, Sir, alam nyo ba? Hindi pa. Death is the end of life. And then, sabi ng estudyante ko, so sa makatuwid, sir, para sa inyo, na-imagine nyo na, para sa inyo, death, alright, is the perfection of life. Naloko na. Kaya mo na, ano yung unang sabi? The end of things is perfection. Okay, very good. And then, ano yung sunod na sinabi? Death is the end of life. Nye! Death is the perfection of life. Nye! Naniwala ba kayo dyan? Ito nga ang usapan natin Paano nangyari yan? Kasi sa unang sentence, the end of things, yan ay iba ang meaning niyan. And per sentence, ay ibig sabihin aim or goal. Alright? Aim o kaya, alright? Aim or goal. Doon sa second sentence, hindi naman. Kasi second sentence, iba yung sinasabi. Ano yung sinasabi? Termination. Alright? Yung end sa second sentence ay ano, ang ibig sabihin, termination, katapusan. Alright? Termination. Alright? Termination. Kahirap magsulat na rin gamit alright, termination. Gamit ay mouse. Anyway, the point is, magkaiba yan. Halimbawa, gusto kong pumunta sa Quezon Hall. Bakit? Kasi gusto kong kausapin ang Chancellor. So, I go on my way to the Chancellor. Ano yung goal ko? Talk to the Chancellor. That's my goal. Tapos biglang tinawag ako ng asawa ko, parang nagalit. Oy, saan ka pupunta? Yes, dear. Tapos lapit ako. Yung plantsahin mo, hindi mo pa tapos. Tapusin mo muna. Tsaka tapos dagdagan mo tong labada na to. Tabahan mo rin to. Yes, dear. Oh, di ano nangyari? Na-terminate yung aking activity. Hindi ako nakadating sa UP, hindi ko ngayon na-achieve yung aking goal. So magkaiba yung goal at saka termination. Yan ang gusto nating sabihin. Pagka may ganyan situation, you have two or more meanings for a single term, merong ambiguity. Kaya parang ambidextrous or ambivalent. Meron tayong ambiguity. Ayan, may ambiguity. So that's one way of your term becoming unclear. Alright? But it is also possible that your term can also be unclear in another way. Ano yun? Tawagin nating vagueness. Alright? Excuse me. Vagueness. Alright? Another way that your term can be unclear is when your term is vague. Alright? Vagueness. Halimbawa, yung distinction, yung boundary between beautiful, alright, beautiful, and ugly, medyo mahirap sabihin yan, ha? Doon sa Northern Japan, ang mga babae, yung mga Ainu, yung kanilang ngipin, jet black ang itsura. Kasi para sa kanila, beautiful daw yun. Alright? Na-imagine nyo ba, may teacher kayo sa UP, yung ngipin lahat iitim, as in jet black, and then you'll say, wow, man, ang ganda ng dating mo, pare ko. Alright? The boundary between beautiful and ugly, gray area So, yun ang sinasabi nating vague. Pag minsan, you have a term that is bounded given its description and the term is not so clear. Halimbawa, kalbo. Nung una, ako maiksi ang buhok. Ngayon lang na-COVID, kaya ako nagkaganito. Pagkakalbo, sasabihin nyo, sino ba yung teacher mo? Di si Professor De Villa, yung kalbo, yung mukhang chino na kalbo. Describe kalbo. Di walang buhok. Ano ako, itlog? Walang buhok? Hindi naman. May buhok, konti lang. Ilang buhok? Isa. Ano ako, yuglina? Isa lang ang, alright, para akong flagellate. Naloko na. Hindi naman. So, yung kalbo at saka hindi kalbo may boundary. Hindi masyadong maliwanag yun. Alright? Or, yung matalino at hindi matalino. Alright? Sasabihin ng mga troll, ang tali-talino naman ni Tatay Digong. Alright, very good. Ang galing-galing naman nung ginawa nila sa paglalagay ng white sand doon sa Manila Bay. Very good. Problema. Bakit? Vague. Ano yung sabihin ano sinasabi ng vague? Vague yung sinasabi mong magaling ba yung presidente? Parang suntukan na lang tayo dyan. Anong ibig sabihin mo ng magaling? Magaling ba talaga yung paglalagay noong white sand doon sa Manila Bay? Medyo vague ang situation natin yan. So, when your terms are not so clear, yung boundary delimiting the term ay sinasabi natin fuzzy. Alright? Gray area. So, two ways you can measure a term when it is unclear. Unclear because it is ambiguous, or unclear because the term is vague. Alright? Ambiguous or vague. Alright? Tapos, problema. Bakit? Pag unclear, yan, masabi natin, unclear. Paano pag clear? How do you know your term is clear? Alright? Parang isda. Diyan na nga pumapasok yung usapan natin. Parang isda. Hahanap tayo ng panukat. Alright? How do you know your term is truly clear? Therefore, hindi siya ambiguous. Therefore, hindi siya vague, lalo na sa vagueness. How do you know? Maliwanag yung gusto mong sabihin na ang galing, magaling. Sino? Si Tatay Digong. Paano mo nasabing maliwanag? Dapat meron kang sukatan. Alright? Halimbawa, si Panelo at saka si Harry Roque, lagi na lang sinasabi, joke, joke, joke. Alright? Pag hindi nyo alam kung ano sukatan ng what a joke is and what a joke is not, you will have a slippery slope. Pagka hanggang dito, sabihin natin, kunyari, may slope. O, balik rin natin. Kunyari, may slope. Sabihin natin, okay, ang boundary ng ating joke ay dito. Pagka dito, lumampas, pag ganon, hindi na joke yan, seryoso na yan. Pag dito lang, joke yan. Kaso, si Duterte, lahat ng sinasabi niya, joke eh. Lahat pagka may mali, joke. Pagka may tama, hindi joke. Dahil hindi sinasabi sa atin, ano ba ang sukatan mo ng joke at hindi joke, nagkakaroon tayo ng slippery slope situation. Alright? Yan ang problema pag wala kayong sukatan. Alright? Pagka wala kang sukatan, slippery slope. Pag slippery slope, lalabas, parang Diyos na si Duterte kasi lahat ng sinasabi niya, tama, at pagka hindi tama, joke lang yan. O edi walang mali. Alright? So, we have to be clear. And to be able to say, we have a clear way of identifying exactly what is meant by the term, that's when we get to have our measure. Ano yung measure natin? Our theories. Alright, what are theories? They are rules. Alright, rules. Or theories. Ano yung ating theories? Theories of meaning. Alright? Classic theories of meaning. Yan. Yung ating classic theories of meaning, dalawa ang nagbigay. Yung isa binigay nung 1500s. Yan. Yung isa binigay nung 1600s. Alright? Yung nagbigay nung una, ang pangalan niya si Thomas Hobbes. Sino ba yan? Mamaya ako napaliwanag. Alright? Thomas Hobbes. Yung isa naman, ang nagbigay, si John Locke. Sino ba si John Locke? Mamaya na nga. Alright? John Locke. Pareho yang importante sa buhay natin. Alright? Bakit? Well, mamaya ko ipaliwanag. But more importantly, yung dalawa na yan, early on in the modern times, ay OC, obsessively, compulsively focused on the meaning of words. Alright? What are words? How do they mean? Alright? Yan ang big time na tanong nila. Alright? Kasi itong dalawa na to, walang mga girlfriend kaya walang magawa. So, kung ano-ano na mga pinag-iisip. I'm just kidding. Alright? So, unahin natin si Thomas Hobbes, 1500s. Si Thomas Hobbes, teka muna ha, balikan ko nga muna yung yung mga comments ninyo. Saan ang thoughts ninyo? Wala kayong comments? Okay, sige. Tuloy natin yung kwento. Mabuti na yung makita ko kasi baka meron kayong comments, magtampo kayo eh. Alright? Okay, share uli ako. Tingnan nga natin din sa ating anong tawag dito? Ating Google Classroom. May comments ba kayo? Wala naman ako nakikita. Okay, tuloy tayo. Okay. Ito ngayon. Thomas Hobbes. Ito si Thomas Hobbes. Alright? ay contemporary ng dalawang sikat na tao. Kailan sila nabuhay? 1500s. Alright? Merong dalawang sikat na tao. Sikat niyan. Sino yan? Alright? Teka muna. Sino ba yung pinag-uusapan natin? Thomas Hobbes. Alright? Thomas Hobbes. Yung kanyang kaibigan, dalawa. Yung dalawa niyang kaibigan, yung isa, si Galileo. Galileo Galilei. O, kilala niyo yan, di ba? Yung nagtitinda ng taho sa FC dati. Wala na nga palang FC ngayon, ano? Biro lang. Yung ikalawa, si Francis Bacon. Alright? Big time. Ang galing ni Thomas Hobbes. Bakit? Kilala niya pareho. Bakit? Kasi itong dalawa na ito, sikat. Si Francis Bacon at saka si Galileo. Big time yan. Alright, Francis Bacon. Bakit sikat ito? Kasi itong dalawa na ito, si Galileo at si Francis Bacon, they are the fathers of modern thought. Big time, di ba? Fathers of modern thought. Alright? Bakit importante yan? Kasi sila ang umimbento ng scientific method. Yun. Kaya sila, fathers of modern thought, big time. Alright? Hindi ordinaryo. And ito si Thomas Hobbes, kaibigan ng dalawa. Very good friend of the two. Alright? So, what's the point? Well, silang lahat mahilig saan? Sa observation. Bakit? Science eh. Alright? Observation. Alright? Yan ang focus of attention nila. Observation, experiments, etc. Now, nagkataon naman, so sila ay lahat mahilig sa science, mahilig sa observation. Nagkataon naman na ito si Thomas Hobbes. By the way, si Thomas Hobbes tsaka si Francis Bacon, magkababayan. Pareho silang Englishmen. Si Galileo, Italian. Now, nagkataon naman na ito si Thomas Hobbes ay nabuhay sa panahon ng Civil War. Si Thomas Hobbes, yung panahon niya, panahon din ni Francis Bacon, may Civil War sa England. By the way, yung Civil War sa England, umabot ng halos 100 taon. Grabe, ano? Now, dahil may Civil War nga dyan, sabi ni Thomas Hobbes, gusto kong tumulong sa bayan. Paano ka tutulong sa bayan? Well, ganito. Kung gusto mong tumulong sa bayan, ito ang gagawin mo. Sabi ni Thomas Hobbes, hahanapan ko ng paraan na magkasundo ang mga kababayan ko. But para malaman ko kung ano yan, dapat malaman ko kung ano ang nature of society or societies. Yun ang number 1 question niya. At dahil tinatanong niya yan, sabi niya, di gagamitan ko ng science. Kaya ang tawag kay Thomas Hobbes, the father of modern political thought. Alright? Importante yan sa atin pag pinag-uusapan na natin artificial intelligence. Ngayon, etong Civil War, habang nangyayari yan, nagsulat ng libro ito si Thomas Hobbes. Sabi niya, how will I now say what society is all about? So, sabi ni Galileo, the most that I can tell you is that the universe, alright, the universe, according to Galileo, is a machine. Alright, ano ngayon? Well, sabi ni Thomas Hobbes, if the universe is a machine, then society itself may be considered a machine. Oo nga naman. Buong universe, machine. Di society rin siguro. Now, if society is a machine, what does that mean? Well, that means I have a way of understanding what society is all about. Remember, when you were kids, meron kayong Barbie doll, meron kayong remote control car, and then you get to be interested, you get to be puzzled by ano ba talaga yung remote control car niyan? Paano ba yan paano ba yan gumagana? Ano ba yung Barbie doll na yan? Alright? So, what do? You get a screwdriver. In the case of remote control car, you take the remote control car apart and then you see all the little things that make up the remote control car. And so, in the end, you get to understand how the remote control car works. So, sabi ni Thomas Hobbes, similarly, therefore, if I take apart society, then I will get to see the tools that society. And if I understand the nature of these tools, then I'll understand society. Then I'll understand how we can fix the problem with our civil war. And so, tinanong niya, what are the tools that make up society? Sabi niya, the tools that make up society, they're called citizens. Now, if you consider citizens as machines, all right, then you next ask the question, what are the tools that make up the citizen? If you know the tools that make up the citizen, then you will know the nature of the citizen, then you will know the nature of society, and then you can fix the problem with the civil war. Now, what are the tools that make up any citizen? Well, first things first, citizens are what? Citizens are bodies, di ba? They are bodies composed of what? They are bodies composed of bones, all right? Composed of muscles, all right? Composed of organs, all right? Ang dami, di ba? Organs, tissues, and so on and so forth. Eh di, ang dami. But more importantly, sabi ni Thomas Hobbes, guess what? Yung pinaka-importanteng component, tool that makes up a citizen, which is present in all citizens, is the mind. As a tool, we need to understand the nature of the mind. The mind is one of these tools that make up citizens. So sabi niya, apparently, the mind is the most influential, the most important component of any citizen. So what is the mind? Well, alam niyo na, the mind is a machine. So let us now find out what are the tools that make up the machine. What machine? Called the mind. All right? And so, what are the tools that make up the machine? He ends up saying, words. Words are the tools with which the mind works. The mind is a machine that works with the components called words. Yan. All right? So, finally, he gets to ask the question, what is the nature of words? And if I can understand the nature of words, then I can understand the nature of sentences. Remember? The sentence, today the sun has risen from the east. Remember? The sentence, yesterday the sun has risen from the east, and the day before. And so now you have another sentence, whenever the sun rises from the east. Those sentences are dependent on your capacity to wield words. No words, no sentence. No sentence, no thought. No thought, no prediction of the future. Remember? Because if you know whenever the sun rises, as a rule, it rises in the east, then you can predict if tomorrow the sun will rise from the east. Oh, di ba? So, what are words? Ang hilig ni Thomas Hobbes, observation. And what is it that you observe? We observe what? Objects. Remember, when you observe, you sense. Sabi nga natin, language is a system of units realizable in some sensory medium. Alright? So, words can be sensed. Words can be observed. Sabi ni Thomas Hobbes, tamang-tama sa science. Observation. Alright? Objects. So, conclusion, sabi ni Thomas Hobbes, words are names of objects. Alright? In fact, sabi niya, if you have anything in your mind that is not somehow related to what you observe, then what is in your mind is not reliable. It's not scientific, ika nga. Names of objects. What are objects? Things that we observe. All right. What are words? Words are names of objects. Well, do you remember when you were kids? So, balik tayo sa akin ha. Baka namimiss niyo na ako eh. Do you remember when you were kids? Paano kayo tinuruan ng words? Where's the light? Where's the light? There's the light. Where's your nose? Where's your nose? Where's your eye? Where's your eye? Eye. Where's your ear? Where's your ear? Ear. All right? So, basically, words have meaning because they are names of objects. All right? Words have meaning because they are names of objects. Okay. We call that the referential theory of meaning. Referential theory of meaning. All right. Referential theory. Yan. Okay. Referential theory. Yan ang unang classic theory of meaning. All right. Bakit referential? Kasi, oo nga naman, bakit ba? Kasi, remember, we use words, all right? What do we do with words? We use them. Now, question, when you use words, what do you use them for? You use words to point out, remember? Where's the light? Where's the light? All right. Point out. Oh, you point out with your word, all right? Point out with. On the other hand, you can say you use it to identify with, all right? Identify with. Sa aming mga pilosopo, ang hilig namin ay itong expression nito, to refer with, all right? Eh, para naman magandang dating, di ba? Parang wow, man, scientific siguro yan. To refer with. Alright? That's our favorite expression. That's our bias. Ergo, the expression referential theory. Alright? Ito yan. What do you use a word for? What do you use a term for? You use a term or a word to refer with. Alright? That's the point. Okay. Kaya, ang tawag, referential theory of meaning. Kaso, sabi ni Thomas Hobbes, problema tayo. Bakit? Remember, we have a tool. What's our tool? It's our term. Oh, what's the problem? Well, we use our terms as names of objects. All right, no problem. No-brainer. Parang hindi, haba-haba ng kwento ni Prof. Dibilde, akala mo may isasabihin importante, yun lang pala, terms are names of objects. Ito ko po kasi isang halimbawa, tool. So it is a tool that we use. Now, problem, bakit? Kasi meron tayong words like on, of, alright, when, where, how, and so on and so forth. These are words that are certainly meaningful and very useful words. And yet, where is the object? There is no object name. All right? Si Thomas Hobbes, professor ng geometry, mathematics professor. Alam niya kung ano ibig sabihin ng the value of the pi. Tanong, anong object ang pinapangalanan ng pi? Anong object ang pinapangalanan ng numbers? Naloko na. Alright. So, sabi ni Hobbes, well, eto kasi yan. Remember, a term is a tool that we use. And you will notice 100% of all tools that humans have come to invent have never been what? Have never been perfect for their own purposes. Halimbawa, sapatos. Na-invento natin sapatos. Nakakita na ba kayo ng perfect pair of shoes na pwede nyong gamitin pang ballroom dancing tsaka pang scuba diving? Di ba? There's such a thing, or Nakakita na ba kayo ng kotse na good for all occasions or bisikleta na good for all occasions? Never. In fact, ang alam natin, when you have a tool, one way or the other, whatever that tool is, whether it is your pen, or your pair of pants, or your shoes, or your bag, or your notebooks, or your computers, may limitation yan eh. Alright? So, sabi ni Thomas Hobbes, edi, let's live with it. Alright? May, may problema nga yung referential theory of meaning, pero anong masama doon? Lahat naman ng tools na hawak ng tao may problema eh. So, let's live with it. So, yun, natapos ang usapan. Live with it. Parang si Duterte, live with him. Alright? Or die with him. Live with it. Bakit? Kasi wala tayong magawa for the moment eh, sabi ni Thomas Hobbes. But at least, somehow, nagsisimula na tayong maintindihan na. Dumating ang panahon naman ni, so kailan yan? 1500s. Dumating ang panahon ni John Locke. Alright? So si John Locke, mahilig, si John Locke, mahilig din sa science. Alright? Sabi ko nga, medical doctor yan. Alright? Sabi ko ba, but anyway, si John Locke, medical doctor, graduate ng Oxford. Oh, big time, ano? John Locke, university graduate ng medicine. Now, si John Locke, sabi niya, problema nga yung referential theory of meaning na yan. Pero sabi niya, kaya may problema, ganito yan. So, paliwanag ko. Ito ngayon ang paliwanag. Imagine, someone, say a professor, alright? And the professor is looking at something, alright? Mukha ba siyang professor? Alright, okay. Kunyari, ito yung tenga niya. Alright, yan. Ito yung buhok ng professor. Yan. Okay? At siya ay nakatingin sa isang bagay, say a piece of glass. You know, lalagyan ng inumin. Parang ako may kaharap ngayon. Yan. Supposing the professor is looking at that piece of glass. Well, what will happen? That professor will reflect in his mind about the glass. Alright? So, sige. Kunyari lang, sinasabi ng professor, ano kaya itong bagay na ito? Paano kaya ito na-invento in a way na siya ay transparent? Okay? So, kung ano man, nag-iisip yung professor. The point is, ito, parang in a way, napunta nun sa kanyang mind. Sabi ni John Locke, guess what? When someone reflects upon, in his thoughts, in his mind, about something from what he has observed, it is not the object that goes into the mind. No, that never happens. What actually happens is what goes into everyone's mind are what we might call the copy of the thing that we see. What's the copy? The copy of this thing. And where does that copy happen? It happens somehow as some kind of image in someone's mind. Alright? And so, it is not the object that is important. You see, sabi ni John Locke, one, kung sasabihin mong the object is the meaning, pagka wala ng object, wala ng meaning yung iyong term, hindi naman, di ba? Meron tayong complex term. Ano yung complex term? The author of Noli Me Tangere, it's a term, kaya lang maraming components. Now, the author of Noli Me Tangere, wala na siyang object. Yung object niya, alikabok, nandun sa luneta. Does that mean the author of Noli Me Tangere is a meaningless term? Hindi naman. That's one. Ano pa? Baka na-miss nyo na ako eh. Balik ulit tayo sa akin. Nung kayo ay pinanganak, you were infants. Infants, ganito lang kalaki. Yan. Baby. Pero, ngayon, ang lalaki nyo na, mga damulag na kayo, mga college student. Alright? So, nagbago kayo. Dahil nagbago kayo, Dapat ba tawagin natin kayo ng ibang pangalan? Halimbawa, Manila. Pagkagabi, ang population ng Manila lumiliit. Bakit? Kasi umuuwi ng Cavite at Laguna at Bulacan yung mga kung sino-sino. Pagdating ng araw, lumalaki. Ang ibig sabihin pa niyan, pagka-araw, ang Manila, version 1.0 ang meaning. Pagdating ng gabi, version 1.2 ang meaning. Nye. Hindi naman. Alright? Hindi naman. Okay? Sorry nakita niyo yung legs ko. Ulitin natin. Nakakatawa ba ang puti ng legs ko? Wala tayong magagawa Ako naglalaba, biglang nawala sa isip ko, hindi na ako makaalis ng bahay papuntang opisina So, eto ngayon, ulitin natin Balik tayo kay John Locke. Anong sabi natin kay John Locke? Okay? Anong sabi natin kay John Locke? Si John Locke, nagtatanong, bakit ganyan? Nawala yung object, nawala yung meaning, hindi naman. Nagbagong object, nagbago yung meaning, hindi naman. And so many other problems with the, anong tawag natin? Referential theory of meaning. So sabi ni John Locke ito. Sabi ni John Locke ito po. Okay, anong sabi ni John Locke? Yung copy, bigyan natin ng pangalan. Let's call that the idea of the glass of water. It is actually the idea that we name. Ayun, naku, napaka-importante. It's actually the idea that we name. Alright? Okay? Hindi nyo nakita yung aking legs. Censored. Alright, balik tayo sa usapan natin. So, in our minds, what we have are not the objects. In our minds, what we have are the ideas. Share naman, alam na namin yan, no-brainer Talaga naman to si Sher kung ano-anong haba ng kwento. Kasi ganito yan. Alright? Okay. Naku, akala nyo napaka-trivial ng usapan natin. Actually, napaka-importante. Ganito yan. Ano nangyari? Excuse me. Ang tawag natin dyan, therefore, ano yung sinasabi natin? Words are names of ideas. Yan yung second classic theory of meaning. Names of ideas. Alright? Yan. Ngayon, ano? Well, by the way, ang tawag natin dyan, ideational theory of meaning. Alright? Ideational from the word idea. Ideational theory of meaning. Alright? Ideational theory of meaning. Yan. So, ano yung una? Referential. Ito yung pangalawa. Alright? Sulat natin para hindi makalimutan. Ano yung una? Referential. Isang R lang yan, Referential theory of meaning. Yan. That's one, and this is the second. Coming from the word idea. So, even if the object is gone, the idea is still in your head or somewhere in your mind. And remember, there are specific ideas, alright, very specific ideas, and there are general or generic ideas. General or generic ideas, what does that mean? Maybe the specific idea will change, but the general idea does not change, then that dispenses with the second problem na sabi nga natin, nagbago yung population ng Metro ng Manila, babaguhin mo yung tawag sa kanya? Hindi naman. Because you have a generic expression. Now, the point is, flexible yung term idea, better than saying object. Alright? Now, ito yung catch. Ang tawag natin dyan sa dalawa, ano nga yung dalawa na yan? Ang tawag natin dyan ay classic theories of meaning. They are classic. Why classic? One, because they are old. Eh, syempre, 1500s, yung isa 1600s. And two, no one uses them in their original form. No one uses them in original form. Bakit? Kasi may problema nga. Alright? Yung problema, alam na natin yan dun sa referential theory of meaning. Ito ngayon ang next question ko sa inyo. Kung kayo ay hindi nabobore pa sa usapan natin. Ano yung question natin? If you think that words are names of ideas, try to now tell me about the problem with that kind of rule. Alright, balik tayo sa akin. Ay, nawala na naman yung sharing. Kainis. Balik lang tayo doon sa sharing ko ha. Ano yung sharing? Ito. Ulitin natin. Meron tayong balik tayo dito. Ito. Sabi natin, meron tayong dalawang classic theories of meaning. Referential. Ito na nga yung isa. Alright. Yan. Ay. Ito. Alright. Referential theory of meaning. Ito yung isa. Ideational theory of meaning. It is the idea that is named. Alright. When you say, words are names of ideas, that's called ideational theory of meaning. Now, sabi nga natin, classic ang tawag sa kanila. Bakit classic? Kasi una, old. 1500s pa lang, 1600s pa, di ba? Ikalawa, kaya classic kasi no one uses these theories in the original form. Wala na. Kasi even the ideational theory of meaning may problema. Yun ang sinasabi ko. Even the ideational theory of meaning may problema yan eh. Eh ano nga yung problema? Ito nga. Alright. Okay, nakashare pa rin ako. Yan nyo ha, mga sa pang-sampo eh siguro perfecto na yung aking broadcast. Ito ngayon. So, names of ideas. What's wrong with that? If words are names of ideas, there's something wrong with that. Kaya nga classic na lang ang tawag natin. Eh. Wala na rin naniniwala sa kanya in its original form. So what's wrong with saying words are names of ideas? Parang may mali ba dyan? Alright? Okay. Imagine someone, say me. Alright, ako na naman. Kasi wala akong maisip eh. Alright? And another one. Natatandaan niyo yung sinabi natin, the lady na merong infant, di ba? May baby. Alright? The relationship between a mother and a child ay ano ba yung sabi natin? Natural, biological. Ito na yung lady. Alright? Yan. Tanggal natin ang mata. Yan. Supposing you have two individuals, they are looking at the same patch of color. So, here are two individuals looking at the same patch of colors. Alright? Question. Is it possible that the two of them can say, well, we are talking about the same patch of color in their minds? Yun ang tanong. Nangyayari ba yan? Now, kasi ganito yan eh. Meron tayong consciousness. You can see my drawings, you're conscious of my drawings. Next question. Does your neighbor see the same drawings that you see? Or better, color. Do you see the same colors? Paano kung ikaw ay may concept ng red, and then ano pa, pula, ano pa, red, ano pa, pula. O sige, tapos. Eh yung kaibigan mo may concept ng red, crimson, ano pa, ox blood red, alright, dragon blood red, maroon, and so on and so forth. Will you say you're seeing the same thing? Parang ganito. Nakita mo itong kung ano mong kulay na ito. Can you confirm as an individual that your neighbor is seeing exactly the same thing that you see? O, kung sabihin natin, ay mahirap. Kasi I can only be conscious of my own consciousness. Sabihin natin na meron kang contraption, yung nakita natin dun sa The Matrix, natatandaan yung The Matrix. Kabit natin dun sa iyong batok. And then, yung contraption na yan, kabit natin sa batok niya, parang dun sa The Matrix. Question, would it be possible if you had such an equipment to see someone's consciousness? Parang hindi pa rin eh. See, when you're conscious of something, that's your consciousness. Yours and yours only. So, bottom line is, ano yung bottom line? Bottom line is this. Alright? Bottom line is, bagal ng computer ko dito sa bahay. Kaya ako pumupunta ng UP eh. Kaya lang nakakatakot ko minsan kasi because I always travel every day, I get to meet so many people every day. Tumataas yung danger na ako ay ma-COVID. Anyway, balik tayo dito. So, ideas, alright, are actually in many ways private in nature. Private sila eh. Your idea of pain, maybe we can give some inkling of your pain thanks to your song or your poem or your novel or your short story. But I doubt it if anybody can see your pain exactly as it is, the way you see it. Ideas are private. And yet words are public. Words are public. So, meron tayong mismatch. Meron tayong discord. Oh, di ba? You remember chords? Now we have a discord. Now we have an inconsistency. Now we have a disharmony. There's no harmony. How can you have harmony between something that is private and something that is public? There's no harmony. Alright? That's incoherent. So, ergo, problematic pala yung ideational theory of meaning. So, sabi natin, classic na lang yan. Classic. Dapat ating i-revise. At maraming revision, sa totoo lang. Nowadays, sabi nga natin, language is a system of units realizable in some sensory medium, only certain combinations of which have meaning by convention. Alright. Pumunta kayo sa San Francisco, naku, ibang klase. Pagbaba mo sa eroplano, puro Pilipino. Pilipino, bantay, Pilipino, security guard. Paglabas mo, Pilipino yung may dala nung cart, Pilipino yung may dala, pati nga taxi driver, Pilipino. What am I saying? Sa San Francisco, ang daming Asians. But Asians are what? Are minorities. Maraming Chicanos, Mexicans. Yung mga Mexicans, minority. Maraming Latinos, yung mga Latinos, minority. Maraming African Americans, minority rin sila. At maraming Caucasians, ano yung mga Caucasians? Minority rin sila. Ibang klase. Sa mga tuwid, sa San Francisco, everyone is a minority. Anong kinalaman niyan sa kwentuhan natin? Wala lang, gusto ko lang magkwento. Masabi ko siya, nagpunta ako ng San Francisco. Alright, sandali, inom lang ako, ha? Alright, so, what are we talking about? In the area of discourse, ng meanings. Sa discourse ng meanings, contemporarily, lahat ng schools of thought ay minority. Lahat ng schools of thought ay minority. Although merong lumalamang, minority pa rin. So, yung ating 1 and 2 classic theories of meaning, maraming variations yan. And then, maraming alternatives. Pero, kung ano man yan, lahat yan minority. Sa mga pilosopo, kagaya ko, kasi marami, merong mga scientists, merong mga social scientists, merong mga pilosopo lang, kagaya ko. Sa mga pilosopo, ang hilig natin ay yung tinatawag na conventionalist theory of meaning. Sabi nga natin language is a system of units realizable in some sensory medium, only certain combinations of which have meaning by convention. Conventionalist. Yan ang ating bias. Bakit? Very simple. One, we agree that terms are tools, all right? And therefore, we agree terms we use. All right? But then when you talk of use, then you talk of users. Nabanggit ko na kanina, di ba? Then you talk of users. If you're talking of users, that means you have a community of users. Yes. And if you have a community of users, all right, then for your terms to be useful, there must be some kind of agreement, all right? Ergo, your convention, an agreement, whether it's formal or informal. And so, we have the conventionalist theory of meaning. That's a contemporary one, albeit, kokonti pa lang yung, hindi naman kokonti, marami ang naniniwala, pero minority. All right? Sometimes the conventionalist theory of meaning is called use theory of meaning, the obvious no-brainer, all right? Sometimes we call it the conventionalist, sometimes we call it the use theory of meaning. Meron pa isa. Sometimes we call it the instrumentalist theory of meaning. Instrumentalist. Yan. Yung instrumentalist ay, in a way, very easy to understand. Bakit? You look at your terms as instruments, all right? They are your instruments. They are your instruments that you use. Kaya instrumentalist. So sometimes we call our theory of meaning instrumentalist theory. Sometimes we call that use theory. Sometimes we call that conventionalist. Ano ang bias ni Professor De Villa? Anong bias ko? Yan na nga, conventionalist, use, or instrumentalist theory of meaning. But I can still be wrong, we'll see. But life goes on. So there you have it. Now, problema. Bakit? When you're using a conventionalist theory, we have a big problem. Why? You see, nung una, talagang sikat na sikat yung ideational theory of meaning. Sikat na sikat siya until we found out that there is a problem. Now, a group of intellectuals said, well, rather than calling ideas, let's just call them concepts. All right? Wishful thinking in the sense that sana balang araw makita natin na yung idea pwede naman siyang hindi private. So kung yung idea ay hindi private, tawagin natin concept. For our purposes, actually, ideas and concepts are almost synonymous, all right? Okay? Now, when initially you think about something that you observe, you have an image of it in your mind. All right? But after a while, the image kasi alam mo, nakita isang baso, another baso. By the time you know it, meron ka ng rule. Ano ba yung mga baso na yan? So, ano yung rule mo? Well, you express that rule in a sentence. Alright? Express that rule in a sentence. Ang lahat ng mga baso ay ganito. Or, you see one triangle, another triangle, another triangle, another triangle, and so many triangles, you come up with the rule. Alright? Anything that looks like this is a triangle. But then when you have that rule is expressed in terms of some word. This word, that word, this word, that word, this word, that word, this word, that word. Okay? So how do you express the rule? You use a sentence. Whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east. How do you express the rule? Anything that has three sides is a triangle. How do you express the rule? For all three falling bodies, F equals ma. But then when you express the rules, you have to use some word, like the word triangle, like the word for all, or the word all or for, etc. So, this is what's going on. When you think, when you reflect, that means what? You're reflecting on the basis of sentences. This sentence, that sentence, this sentence, that sentence. But your network, your web of sentences is founded on your web of words. You have a network of words governed by syntax. All right? Get it? So you have here a web, a network of words. On the basis of your network of words, you have here a web of sentences. All right? And guess what? What are these sentences? They are your thoughts. Thoughts I was asking about, saan ba sila nangyayari? Sa cyberspace, physical, etc. All right? Guess what? Dito pumapasok yung naimbento nino? Ni John Locke. Alright? Sabi ni John Locke, we must be liberal to one another. Why? Because when we observe, we get to have different ideas in our minds. Why? Because not all of us are born in the same place, raised in the same household. All right? Not all of us are raised in the same way. Some of us are born and raised in some hinterland of the mountains. All right? Some of us are born and raised in somewhat are raised in some coastal area along the sea. Therefore, it is possible for us to have different ideas in our minds. Not all of us are expected to have the same ideas in our minds, and that's not our fault. We are all born by accident in some place, like Crete and Persia and Greece and Egypt, all right? If ideas come from our experience and we have different experiences, then certainly we will have different ideas in our minds. And when we have different ideas in our minds, we have different conceptual frameworks in our minds. There you go. And you have different conceptual frameworks, you have different rules about how you look at the world. And that's how valuable conceptual frameworks are. Alam nyo ba, si Thomas Hobbes ang umimbento ng social contract theory. Tsaka ako na ipaliwanag, kulang na tayo sa oras eh. Social contract theory. Walang gobyerno ngayon except maybe 2 or 3 na miyembro ng United Nations na hindi social contractarian. Social contract theory lahat ang foundation ng Constitution ngayong modern times. Si Thomas Hobbes yan. Paano? Kasi nga yung sinasabi niya about words all the way to a political theory. Kaya tawag kay Thomas Hobbes, the father of modern political thought. Now, yung social contract theory, nauso dyan yung liberalism, ergo liberal democracy. Bakit? Kasi, yung liberalism ni Locke, sinasabi nga niya, alright, liberal democracy. Yung social contract theory, naging liberal democracy ang foundation. Salamat kay John Locke. Pinagpatuloy kasi ni John Locke yung mga iniisip ni Thomas Hobbes. Now, ang sinasabi ng liberal democracy, walang sisihan kung nagkakaiba tayo ng naiisip. Bakit? Kasi hindi lahat tayo pare-pareho ng experiences, therefore hindi lahat tayo magkakapare-pareho ng ideas. From just thinking about words, they end up contributing to modern political thought. And for practical purposes, almost 100% of the members of the United Nations are social contractarian thanks to them. And guess what? Without the social contract theory, hindi maiimbento ang mathematical logic. Without the social contract theory, hindi maiimbento ang science. Paano nangyari yan? Bahala na ako, papaliwanag ko later. Kaso ang problema, naubos na yung oras natin. Miss nyo na ako. Nakakahiya, nakita nyo aking legs. Oh my God! For the books. Well, nakikita ng estudyante ko yung legs ko kasi every once in a while, nagja-jogging ako around the campus eh. Pero makita on broadcast, YouTube, oh my God, I'm going to die. Anyway, balik tayo sa usapan natin. If you have any comments, hindi nyo na naman nakita yung screen, nakakainis. Well, at least nadinig nyo. Ulitin natin ha. Ano yung hindi nyo nakita yung screen? Ito. Anong sabi natin? When you have, alright, habulin natin ha. When you have thoughts, you have sentences in your minds, alright? When you have thoughts, you have sentences in your minds. But then you have sentences in your minds expressing your thoughts. That would mean you will have words. Alright? You will have words that you use to express your sentences. So you have a network of words. That's your language. Thanks to your network of words, your web of words, you can have your web of sentences. By the way, your web of sentences, we call them theoretical frameworks. Theoretical frameworks. All right? Theoretical frameworks. Bale, na-conscious ako masyado dahil doon sa legs ko eh. Now, what happens is, sabi nga ni John Locke, we have different experiences. Remember? Anong sabi ni John Locke? We have ideas in our minds from what we observe. So what happens if you are born in different places, raised in different ways, you end up with different ideas in your minds. That's what's going on. You will have different ideas in your minds. Yan na yung sinasabi ko kanina na na-miss out natin dun sa ating sharing, alright? Magkaiba kayo ng maiisip. You may be talking about the same series of tones, but for one, it is music, for another, it is noise. And that's precisely why sinasabi ni John Locke, we have to be liberal. Because walang sisihan, bakit ka dyan pinanganak? Kasalanan mo yan. Hindi naman. And yung social contract theory na inimbento ni Thomas Hobbes, paano nangyari? Sige, sabihin ko na sa inyo. Ito nangyari. Kasi sabi ni Thomas Hobbes, you understand the word, you understand the sentence. You understand the sentence, you understand an argument. You understand an argument, you understand how humans reason. And when humans reason, they can reason from the past. From the past, we can say whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east. And thanks to our capacity to reason, we can predict the future. Whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east. Therefore, if tomorrow the sun will rise, it will rise from the east. Now, if we can do that, reason from the past into the future, we can also say, in times of civil war, we realize that human beings are also beasts. They are animals who kill each other. When the rule that runs the lives of men are the rules of nature, the laws of nature, life is brutish and short. When the laws of nature are in charge, governing the lives of men, life is brutish and short. We know that. So that we now see the future. If you look into the future and you see, what do you see of the future? If we live our lives under the laws of nature, we can be sure our lives will be short and brutish. So what do? We now talk to one another before the future of a brutish life comes. Talk to one another, organize ourselves and say, let us form some constitution, some laws of men, so that we will live under the laws of men rather than the laws of nature. And when you have the laws of men, there is peace and order. And so now we are able to justify how you construct a society independent of religion. Because remember, religion has always brought men wars, kagaya ng civil wars of England. There you go, Thomas Hobbes. But then, dinagdagan pa ni John Locke. Sabi ni John Locke, yung social contract theory dapat merong component na liberalism. Men will have different ideas in their minds because they are born and raised in different places. And when they have different ideas in their minds, they should be liberal to one another. They should not kill each other. They should not be involved with civil wars. And there you go, we highlight democracy. And guess what? Without democracy, we will not invent science. And without democracy, we will not invent mathematical logic. Diyan papunta ang ating usapan. Without the social contract theory, there would not have been the Industrial Revolution thanks to science in England. And without the Industrial Revolution, there would not have been mathematical logic as we know it. Oh, kabit-kabit yan, di ba? Sana naman kahit paano may naintindihan kayo kahit nakapalpak-palpak ako. Ay. Anyway, pasensya na. Napakadaldal na naman ng inyong teacher, ha? Pasensya na. Sana may natutunan kayo kahit paano. Pero by next meeting, di ba, nag-survey tayo, remember? We did a survey about those who want to participate sa YouTube at saka StreamYard Live. Merong mga nag-volunteer, alright? So matutuwa ako pagka may live participation na hindi na tayo magkakagulo-gulo na nawawala na naman yung aking mga slides na sinishare. Alright? Magandang hapon po. Huwag madadala. Ituloy-tuloy niyo yung comments dyan. Iniipon natin yan. Sasummarize ko yung mga yan. Pag-uusapan natin later. Alright. Good afternoon. I'm so sorry, Palpak. But we'll do better next time. Peace, man.